Hello, I'm John Billett. I'm a director of ID Comms, and for many years I ran an eponymous company called Billett, in which I and others helped create what is today a media auditing system which, sadly, in my view, is no longer fit for purpose. We'll come on to talk about why it's no longer fit for purpose, but before I do that, without wishing to give you any history lesson, it's worthwhile talking for a minute about why data pooling became the way in which auditing was done. Just cast your mind back. We had really three major media. That was all. We had television, we had newspapers, we had magazines. Of course, there were other media, but those three really accounted for 85% of all advertising. So advertisers were similar in their media approach. They were, to use that awful word, homogeneous. They were all going about things in a similar way. And if you look further than that, within each of those media, we were all using ITV on television. It was the channel. Where it was newspapers, if we were reaching upmarket, it was sort of the Times, Telegraph. Or if you were reaching the mass market, the Daily Mirror and the Sun. If you were using magazines, Woman's Own, Woman's Weekly, then you had Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan. So what we were able to do was to get all of those advertisers together, all using the same media combinations, and put them all together. So we could take 10 advertisers to average out their prices, average out their positions in papers, average out their access to key programs or whatever, and we could produce a norm which became a benchmark that was valid and worthwhile. We also had a situation in which most advertisers were targeting from about 3 or 4 different audiences. Some adults, all adults. If you were selling motor cars, ABC1 adults. Selling alcohol, 18 to 34 adults. If you were selling food, well, obviously housewives with children. So we had advertisers concentrating in key media groups, concentrating on key titles, and using the same target audiences. We also had great similarities in the formats. The 30-second spot was dominant, the half page in a newspaper or a quarter page, the full page color. So again, this homogeneous business of advertiser really did make it possible to create a valid database. And if you wanted to finesse this, we could do it by season, because you had Christmas advertisers or Easter advertisers. We could do it by region, London on the southeast, national of course, Scotland the north. So that was the history of auditing. We created really valid databases, and data pooling was the way in which we did it. That was data pooling yesterday. And you know, some things change. Media's changed, consumers have changed, business has changed, but the media auditing system is still stuck in that data pooling. And I can only, in the short time we've got together, just highlight the changes that have taken place. Advertisers are now disparate, dissimilar, and distinctive. Do you know, on television, on my television set at home, I've got 600 channels. Data pooling of 600 channels, there's no large enough database to cover that. Look at the change in print. Look at the change in digital advertising, where you've got channels that didn't even exist a few years ago. And you as advertisers aren't just buying spots and spaces anymore. You're buying spots linked in with public relations activity, linked in with merchandising. The whole fluidity of the digital scene is now so rapidly changing that no amount of data pooling could ever be large enough. And remember this, people who've got the biggest data pools are the media agencies. Which leads me to my final point. You have to have valid numbers. The prices that are in the data pooling systems are no longer fit for purpose. Why? Because the numbers from the media holding companies, the discounts and the overriders, are not in the system. That's why nobody these days gets a bad audit. It's because the price norms in the audit system are artificially high. So we need something completely different. And that we'll talk about on another occasion shortly. But for the moment, let me leave you with this simple view. Data pooling was a really valid operation 30 years ago. Today, it's a bit like the statistician who drowned in a pond that was 3 inches deep on average. The averages are meaningless, the norms are invalid, and you need a different solution. Thank you.